Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about the PlayStation 5 Pro because the first review scores have started to come out, and if I'm being honest, they're lower than I expected. In fact, even the more positive of the reviews seem to kind of ask, do you really got the cash to waste? But let's talk about it and take a look at a couple different reviews. One that's more of the positive scale, one that's more on the negative scale, because even the ones that are happy with the system are kind of explaining why this is a very niche item. Let's get into it. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, I do want to be clear, I am planning on reviewing the PlayStation 5 Pro myself, but this has definitely dampened my hype somewhat, mostly because it is such an expensive system. When I see headlines like this talking about the fact that No Man's Sky can run at 8K, stuff like this sounds enticing, and I'll admit the fact that, honestly, I play so much on my PS5, I'm always curious about those hardware pushers, those things that are going to make the already good-looking games look even better. Now, if you look at this, the total spread isn't terrible. I'm not going to act like it's getting crushed. It's not like it's getting 3 out of 10s and stuff, but the original console, the original PlayStation 5, a lot of those console review scores were 9s, 8.5s. This is still getting a decent amount of 8s, but these 7s are what kind of just latched into my mind. Apparently, you do notice the upgrades. It is the best console experience. If you have a high-end PC, well, it's not really going to be that big of a difference. Obviously, 2 terabytes of SSD. The design looks cool, and it's got a good game selection on day one. Now, we're going to go through some reviews, but honestly, this to me is something that I am extremely glad about. There have been times where a new system, a new update, a new piece of tech comes out, and there's pretty much no instantaneous support. Cough, cough, PlayStation 2 VR, whatever the heck. Yeah, PlayStation 2 VR is the only thing I have not bought from PlayStation in the last couple of years. I got their, what was that, $200 PlayStation Edge controller. I got the PlayStation 5 Slim. I like to experiment with Sony tech, but the PlayStation VR 2, it just never seemed that fully supported. At least the Pro is being properly supported. But so I took a look at IGN's 7 out of 10 review, and it's very technical. I give them props about the fact that it is something that goes into the details of the hardware, the technical details, how exactly it's creating these extra frames, but it's a little too in the weeds. I wanted to take a look at this article by The Verge. People actually sent me this one by The Verge, and people said it's really, really good because it explains to a normal person if it's worth it. Should you spend $700 for a diskless console? You got to buy an external disk drive. Is it even going to show up if your TV isn't 100 inches? And apparently, the answer is no. Now, I feel like this review starts with the most important question of all, which is the fact that it starts with just the fact that, okay, yes, this is technically the most powerful PlayStation of all time, but it's also the most expensive PlayStation of all time. I mean, in some parts of the world, some fans sent me screenshots of what this costs in your country. I've seen in some places this costs like $1,200. Just crazy prices that just boggle the mind. So $700 here in America, is it worth it? Now, I like the way he starts with this. He says, I think I can answer that, but first you need to find a measuring tape. Find your favorite seat in front of the TV, then measure the distance between your head and the screen. Now measure the screen diagonally. If you own a 65-inch or a 55-inch, which are the most popular TV sizes, do you sit 10 feet away? Then no. The PlayStation 5 Pro is probably not worth $700. Not even if you have 20/20 vision like me. The improved visual fidelity just isn't tangible. Now, this to me is not great. Maybe I'm being overly pessimistic, but when I review games, it's not on a big TV. I kind of have this little spot right here. I've got my monitors for recording this screen. I've got the screen I read from, and then I've got my review TV. And my review TV is a 41-inch. It's 4K. It's 120 hertz. It's really good. But this is where I do about 85% of all of my gaming. So the fact that they're straight up saying that if you do not have over a 65-inch, if you're not close to the TV, you're not even going to notice the difference. Yeah, that's not the best. But let's actually scroll down here. What do we got? If you sit a bit closer, Sony's new game console can make select games look amazing. This is the 8 out of 10, by the way. This is a... man, I feel like this guy's tone of voice is very bleak. Maybe that's just me, though. If you sit closer, certain games look amazing. Blades of grass, pillars of rough-hewn stone, the weave of a backpack. They pop at that higher fidelity. It's enough of an improvement that I found myself wanting to sit a bit closer or stand or even plug the PS5 Pro into a 4K computer monitor and use it like a gaming PC. Okay. While some games playing the original PS5 could feel like they're looking through a dirty window, the PS5 Pro has the power to wipe that window clean. I wish you'd given a specific example. I think almost everything looks extremely good on the PlayStation, especially everything that Sony directly touches. There's certain games I wish they would show the most. I haven't seen certain people show, like I heard Black Myth Wukong is probably getting some sort of patch to actually make that resolution looks better. I want to get, like, the reason I'm curious about the PlayStation 5 Pro is because I want a system that just keeps the best quality graphics while sticking to 60 FPS. I am obsessed with 60 FPS, and it is wild to me that PlayStation 5, just base PS5, the amount of games that look good but can't hit 60 FPS, or sometimes just choosing between performance and graphics, it just feels weird. But let me continue here. I think it's important to make this clear right away. The PlayStation 5 Pro doesn't make every game pro. To really see the difference, you have to go to the specifically patched PlayStation 5 Pro games. Now, we knew about that. I think technically Sony is saying 50 games at launch are upgraded for the PS5 Pro. I've actually seen lists going around online. People have been going through the store pages. Technically, over 90 games are now confirmed to be PS5 Pro patched, and that number's only going to go up. But I guess there's 50 that really maximize the power of the PlayStation. This is no PlayStation 6. Sony has made no suggestions they'll kick off a new console generation. There's no exclusive games. It still plays the same stuff that your PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 titles are using, but now it still plays the same PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 titles using the same AMD Zen 2 CPU cores. It gets the same software updates, and it uses the same excellent DualSense gamepad and offers largely the same ports. Okay, yeah, so expects what we expected, which is that it's just a better PS5. But the PlayStation 5 Pro comes with an extra 2 gigs of DDR5 memory, more than double the storage with the 2TB drive we now have instead of the 1TB we had at launch, and most importantly, a 62% faster GPU with 16.7 teraflops of raw graphical compute. Add in an AI upscaling technique called PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, PSSR, and it's easily the most potent home console yet made. These specs, we made a video talking about this. This is a really strong console. I'm curious how that's going to be with patches down the road. A lot of times whenever they launch new tech, it still takes developers a bit to actually get good at making games for it. I'm curious how long people have had PlayStation 5 Pro dev kits, or if they just gave them specs to hit the PlayStation 5 Pro benchmarks, but let me go to that. Okay, what that actually means for games up to each studio to some degree. But in practice, many developers are boasting that you no longer need to choose between the smoothness and fidelity. You can have your cake and eat it too, with 4K-like graphics and 60 FPS. At PlayStation 5 Pro's preview event, I told you I knew that it wasn't strictly accurate. With only 45% more rendering performance, some graphical compromises are still being made. Yeah, well, we knew this was going to happen. Before it came out, I am glad places like The Verge asked the hard questions because, hey, this isn't just some cheapo piece of impulse buy thing. It is a very pricey system. The fact that it is still having to choose, it is still weird to me a bit that so many games are still going to run at 30 FPS on a $700 console, but let me keep reading here. But after spending several straight days swapping back and forth between the original PS5 from 2020 and the new PlayStation 5 Pro, testing over a dozen games, I think there's something to that best of both worlds claim. In every title I tried, while sitting no more than 8 feet away from a 65-inch TV, the PlayStation 5 Pro was clearly the better place to play. So this is one of the things that people have been the most curious about. It actually boosts even PlayStation 4 games. Yeah. So this is part of the new AI upscaling thing where it actually boosts the quality of like individual lighting, individual textures, it ups the resolution, it ups the quality. That does look much, much, much better. Like not to a crazy degree, but enough where I'm like, okay, that's pretty rad. I'm definitely in a spot where the more I read about the PlayStation 5 Pro, I want it to be more exciting than it is. I mean, my PlayStation 5 is already $500, right? A PlayStation 5 Pro being $700. I guess I expected it to be, 20% better. And this definitely doesn't look 20% better. Okay. The thing is, my couch isn't 8 feet from my TV, it's 12 feet, too far to tell the difference between PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 Pro because those details melt away. I can just barely make out the difference at 10 feet sitting at the edge of my seat. The big exception I've tried is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. While I can't see all the visual improvements leaning back on the couch, Rebirth definitely looks like the most improved game on the PlayStation 5 Pro, no longer forcing me to choose between distractingly choppy frame rate and annoyingly blurry visuals. It's the new PlayStation 5 Pro exclusive versatility mode that offers a cleaner picture without those muddy options and also makes it have visible distance changes. Interesting. I could see some Final Fantasy Uber fans picking up the console purely for this. I actually already did see some of my really hardcore Final Fantasy friends, especially some of my friends that are Final Fantasy YouTubers. They've already decided, all right, this is worth it for me. Most games don't have this much of an improvement, though. Let's click that for a second. Yep, that definitely does look better. You shouldn't expect the PlayStation 5 Pro to necessarily improve graphics in a way you might prefer. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's open world still does that pop-in thing where plants and bushes appear just as you're about to run into them. Alan Wake 2 still can't keep Detective Casey's sideburns and facial hair from strobing in and out of existence. Speaking of Alan Wake 2, this is one of the games that gets the most PlayStation 5 Pro enhanced because of its new ray tracing mode. Now, we took a look at this. There were some leaked pictures of this. You could see in the mirror how much better this looks. That's great, but man, I feel like I'm having a bit of an existential moment in that this is a cool upgrade, but I'm already starting to think, was this worth it? Was it worth the dev time? Was it really worth the crazy push? I ended up reading the entire IGN article as well, and they talked about the fact that the PSSR, the extra frames, the smoothing out of certain games and stuff like that is great, but I kind of wanted to see if any games passed 60 FPS. And they do talk about the fact that some games do have 120 hertz modes, but I'm a bit let down by this. I don't think it's bad, but I think this is one of those things where it is such a pinnacle luxury item. A lot of people that bought a PlayStation 4 ended up getting a PlayStation 4 Pro. A lot of people that got a Nintendo Switch, I do think a decent amount ended up getting the OLED Nintendo Switch. I think this is the new market, right? Is those optional tiny upgrades. This sounds like a very tiny upgrade, at least without a microscope and a whole kit, but I'm going to be getting a PlayStation 5 Pro here in a bit. It's going to be delivered today, I think around, well, I don't want to say what time, but I am having a PlayStation 5 Pro delivered today. Big, gigantic thank you to my girlfriend. She bought my PlayStation 5 off me for $500, so I only had to pay $200 for a PlayStation 5 Pro. So thank you, baby. You're a queen. She's never really played PlayStation 5 ever in her life. She's never played any PlayStation, so she's going to buy my PlayStation 5. I'm getting the Pro so we can play Baldur's Gate 3 and stuff together. But, man. Oh, man, I am so much less excited about the PlayStation 5 Pro now, but what are you going to do? The fact that it's for people with the biggest TVs, with the closest couch and the best eyesight, and only for particular games. But What do you guys think about the PlayStation 5 Pro? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Man, that's lame as hell. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.